So the regular season is now over. It is time for playoff football in the NFL. What each conference has from its postseason picture perspective, the outlook from the odds in the chase for a conference championship, and of course, a Lombardi trophy as well. All of that here in this third hour, looking at Super Wildcard Weekend and the matchups that will kick off the opening round of the NFL postseason. We'll also take a look at the draft order, the top 5, the top 10, the top 18 that has already been decided without the playoff teams at the end of the regular season. So much to get to here, DRS, up until 11 a.m., live right here on the early line.
Some teams are playing for championships. Some teams are already in the offseason trying to find their head coach and who they're going to actually draft and get on with the life of their franchise. And some players, looking for new teams, obviously. But the fan bases, that's the one that you worry about. Like, you look at a couple of these bad football teams where they suffered through 18 weeks of football. Just give them something to be happy about here with a good draft, with a good free agency. And for myself, everybody but the New York Giants have a great offseason and a great free agency and a great draft. I think we can all wish that well.
Yes, we certainly can, DRS. There is so much to get to. For 18 teams in the NFL, it's draft season. It's the early stages of the offseason. For 14, a postseason is on the horizon. And for a few, who is the best bet to win a Super Bowl championship, Super Bowl 59, in just about a month in New Orleans? A lovely place to visit. Hope I get to do so one day. At Sports Grid on Twitter, as we enter the NFL playoffs, which team is the best bet to win Super Bowl 59? That was the question for all of you in Fade the Public. Listen, there are 14 teams to choose from, right? But there's only 4 options that you can post in a Fade the Public poll at Sports Grid on Twitter. So we go with the top 3, but a small caveat with some movement on this Monday morning. The Ravens and the Bills tied for the third best price to win a Super Bowl championship, but the Lions, the favorites, at 3-1. The 2-time reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, that second best price at plus 350. So at Sports Grid on Twitter, which team is the best bet to win a Lombardi trophy? Donnie, it's a pretty even split right here, my friend.
It is.
The Lions, the Chiefs, the Bills. 27.7 for the Lions, 28.3 for KC, 27.2 for Buffalo. In the other, we asked for a reply, getting nearly 17%. Our guy Hollywood Hernandez saying the Ravens are on full throttle. Another account saying the Packers are the best bet. Goodfellas Laugh is his name, one of Donnie's good friends. DRS, which way did you vote for the Super Bowl 59 best bet decision?
Well, for me, I saw the other, so I didn't vote for it because I didn't want to hit other and then have to reply Eagles. It's a little bit too much time for my morning. So I just stuck with the Lions, Chiefs, and the Bills and made my decision from there. But plus 350, I did go with the Chiefs, who have the slight lead at 28% over 27% for the Lions and 27% for the Buffalo Bills. You now have the bye week where the Chiefs can rest and get ready. The Chiefs will be home for the holidays, as I like to say, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They will be in the Super Bowl. Then Andy Reid gets 2 weeks to get ready, and as long as Patrick Mahomes shows up in the football game, they're going to beat whoever they play at that point. So for me, I'm going to vote Chiefs at a plus 350 price. As a fan, I hope they don't get there because we always like something new to talk about for those 2 weeks other than the Chiefs and the Patriots for the past 20 straight years, it feels like. But it just feels like we are heading down that path where the Chiefs are lined up once again and probably playing their best football and getting players back at the right time. That's tough to see, but I got Chiefs plus 350 is where my vote went.
This is year number 7 in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback. In the previous 6, they have reached the Super Bowl 4 times. They have won 3 Super Bowls. They have played in the AFC Championship game all 6 seasons. They have hosted the AFC title game 5 of those 6 times. Last year was the first time KC had to go on the road. They did as an underdog twice, winning outright in Western New York against the Bills and the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. How could you doubt or even fault the public for trying to attempt to even fade Kansas City? It is the correct way of looking at it. I selected the Lions just because I have a bet on Detroit to win Super Bowl 59. The Lions hoping to play in a Super Bowl for for the first time in franchise history. My number is 6-1. It is now half that at plus 300. But it should say, DRS, as we look at the structure and the path for how these teams will get to a Super Bowl. We start in the NFC. Game 272 was critically important because the winner last night in Detroit, Lions and the Vikings, would be the 1 seed and the divisional champ. The loser would be on the road as the 5 seed. Detroit got that 1 seed. A critical open weekend and time to rest for a team that is incredibly banged up. The Lions, the 1 seed, the Eagles, the 2, the Bucks, the 3, the Rams, the 4, the Vikings, the top at-large team, a wild card spot as the 5 seed, the Commanders, the 6, the Packers, the 7. Here are the NFC Championship odds and where things stand in this conference. The Lions, a short favorite, Donnie, at a plus 135 number. The Eagles, the second best price at plus 320. The Vikings and the Packers both see their prices get longer after a disappointing final weekend of the regular season.
And it's right. And you look at those numbers there, the Lions should be the favorite here. They get to buy their home field. They're a dome team. They don't have to go outdoors because I think we could both agree the 2 best teams in the NFC are the Eagles and the Lions will have home field advantage. That is a big, big deal. Also, the Eagles will get a tough matchup against the Packers right off the bat. Those 3s, which are the look-ahead lines, now getting up to 5.5 at some outlets here. But if we just go chalk all the way through, Dan Campbell might be right. In 2 weeks, you might be seeing the Vikings go up against the Lions because let's just say if the Buccaneers win, the Rams win, that's how it filters down the teams that you're going to play here. So I do think that road to the Super Bowl is extremely tough because you're going to get good punches, even though you have the buys of the Detroit Lions. If your games are going to be the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles on your way to the Super Bowl, boy, you earn the right to play in the Super Bowl. And the same thing with the Eagles, beating the Packers, then the second-round opponent, and then eventually maybe finding your way to playing on the road against the Detroit Lions. But I don't have any discrepancies with the way those odds are. If it does get down to the chalk wins out in the NFC, and it's the Eagles and the Lions, that will be an epic football game in Detroit if we make it that far to watch it. But I do agree that plus 135 price, it should be the Lions. They're home field. They're a good football team. They deserve it.
Personally, I would be surprised if it's not the Lions and the Eagles in Detroit, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. In all 3 of our opening round NFC playoff games on Super Wildcard Weekend, the spread 4.5 or fewer. Very different story in the AFC. The Chiefs, the 1 seed, once again. Home field advantage, a conference championship runs through Arrowhead. The Bills, the 2 seed. The Ravens, the 3 seed. The Texans, the 4 seed. Houston, a home dog, though, to start the postseason against the Chargers. The Steelers, 9.5-point road dog in Baltimore. The Broncos, 8.5-point road underdog in Western New York. So, Donnie, AFC title odds still, as it really has been all season long, a tier of 3. The Chiefs, the Bills, then the Ravens.
Now, look, those tier of 3, either one of those teams can beat each other. If you're talking neutral site Super Bowl action, which I understand they're in the AFC, they can't meet there, but hear me out. You'd be like, you know what, coin flips all the way around. But you take the coin flips out of the equation where, again, it used to be 2 teams get buys, now we get 1. Major advantage. 1 team doesn't have to leave their home building as long as they win. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs getting healthy at the right time with Andy Reid as your head coach and maybe the most, unheralded defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo, who comes up with gem game plans, game after game after game in the playoffs. He has extra weeks to prepare. I would be surprised if the Chiefs once again aren't playing for another Super Bowl, which will be a 3rd win in the row. Nobody's ever done it.
Hard to bet against it right now is what I would say. So much to get to here on this Monday morning edition of the Early Line after the end of the regular season finale in the National Football League. We have looked at the playoff pictures, but as we have shared, an interesting wrinkle to the final day of the regular season is not just the race for playoff spots or number 1 seeds, but the number 1 overall draft pick in the 2025 NFL Draft in just a few months, this upcoming April. The Patriots in pole position to hold on to that first overall pick, a franchise that desperately needs to build up talent across the roster, even with a franchise quarterback to build around in Drake May. Just needed to lose at home against Buffalo. They win. So the Patriots will not draft first overall, rather 4th, and they'll have a new head coach that will influence the calls of what they do. Because of New England's win on Sunday, Tennessee first overall pick. The Titans at number 1, the Browns number 2, the Giants number 3, and the Jags round out the top 5. All 18 picks, 1 through 18, have been determined based on those teams that did not qualify for the postseason within the NFL. But, Donnie, it's rather simple. When you look at the top 5, 3 teams need a quarterback in a draft right now that is perceived to only have 2 that will really go in the top 5. The Titans and the Browns in pole position to draft their quarterbacks of the future for their franchises.
Yeah, good for them. But also, when you started the season, I didn't think too many of us on our bingo cards had the Titans and the Browns 1 and 2.
Right.
You're looking at the Titans, who we didn't think they would be a great football team, but the way they spent their money at some key positions, like, you know what? They're going to hang around. They want to see what Will Levis has. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wins. We'll see if they can get to the playoffs. They were terrible this year. The Cleveland Browns, with Deshaun Watson and all the talent they surrounded him with, they were hoping he could finally put it together. And even if he didn't, Ben, what did that mean? 8, 9, maybe 10 wins. It just didn't work out in their favor. They end up 2. The teams that we probably thought might be juggling around there would be the Giants and the Patriots, 2 of the teams that really needed to finish 1 and 2, you figured, may have missed their opportunities. Will they get quality football players? Yes. But just like in any sport, unless you're getting the most important position out there, which is quarterback, nothing really matters at this point. And I did see some Giants fans creep up and say, it's no big deal. You can always trade up to 1 and 2 and get your quarterback. Really? So you want to cost yourself a first-round pick and more just to move up when all you had to do was lose football games you weren't supposed to win down the stretch, and you could have claimed those spots yourself? If you're asking for the most egregious win, it had to be the Patriots. On Sunday, it really did. Like, Buffalo didn't throw out a Carson Wentz-esque Kansas City effort. Was like, we're not even trying to be here. We don't have anybody playing in this game. They actually put forward a decent effort here, and you still beat them at home. Imagine being a Patriots fan going to that game where the only thing you're cheering for is a Buffalo Bills win. So you could say this season was awful. We fired our head coach. We got the number 1 pick. We might have a semblance of some fun over the next couple of years watching this all play out, because you didn't need the quarterback for the Patriots, but you could have turned that number 1 into a windfall to surround that quarterback with some actual talent. So it is embarrassing the way some of these teams did play out their season. Even more embarrassing how they just couldn't continue their embarrassment over week 17 and 18 to take losses.
The Giants as a 7.5-point home dog against a Colts team that needed to win to keep its playoff hopes alive in week 17. They win outright. They lose control of the first overall pick. Yeah. New York desperately needs a quarterback. And if this was last year, where we saw 6 QBs go in the opening round, that a record in the modern draft era dating back to 1997, all 6 QBs in the top 12, that also a record, maybe it would be different. And Donnie, entering the year, there was a thought, all right, 4 to 5 guys probably going to be in line to be a top 10, top 15, at least first-round pick. I'm not sure we have more than 2. At the start of this season, Carson Beck out of Georgia was the favorite to be the first overall selection at 3-1. Entering week 17, Shedeur Sanders was greater than a $2 favorite to be the first overall pick. So mark this down right here, right now, on Monday, January 6th, the first day after the end of the regular season. Cam Ward out of Miami is an ever so slight odds-on favorite to be that first overall pick at minus 125. A lot of change, DRS, from what we perceived entering this NFL and college football season.
Yes, and understand, smokescreen season has already begun. All college football season long, we were led to believe that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders looked really good. Can't wait to get him in the pros. And then we get the behind the scenes, probably the Giants putting this out. We don't even have first-round grades on these 2 quarterbacks, hoping they fall to them here. I love smokescreen season. It's here. 2 great quarterbacks that now we're going to poke holes in all the way through.
Draft season is always fun. Tom Vecchio joins us next. The end of the regular season around the National Football League, so the early handicaps for the playoff picture all around the NFL with TV Tom Vecchio of Sports Grid live right here on this Monday. No Monday Night Football game to preview in the NFL for that prop perspective, but we'll get Tom's thoughts on the playoff picture around the National Football League and when and where we can start to dive in. Vecchio, as always, thank you for joining us to kick off a new week on TEL.
Of course, thanks for having me. We are in a great spot for the playoffs. There are some early lines already posted in terms of player props. I've already jumped in on some. We've already seen some line movement. There's some potential weather expected next weekend in Philly. I know Donnie's obviously going to be paying attention to that, so I'm already in on the under on that game. Some overs on some players. Let's roll.
Yep, let's roll. Let's get right into it, Vecchio, and let's look at the path through a postseason march for all these teams in either conference. We start in the AFC. The Chiefs are the 1 seed. They have the bye and home field advantage throughout. The Bills the 2, Ravens 3, Texans at the 4 spot. You see the wild card teams on your right side. We've got some very hefty spreads, Vecchio, in 2 of our 3 opening round games within the AFC. Both the Steelers and the Broncos north of touchdown underdogs on the road. The Chargers actually a slight road favorite, now laying a field goal in Houston. So we look at the playoff picture and what it means for the AFC championship odds. All year long, really, in the AFC, it's been a tier of 3. You can move those prices and maybe jockey those positions ever so slightly, but it's been the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. Is there a bet you would make in the AFC entering Super Wildcard Weekend?
It's really tough because of where the odds are, and I honestly think they're spot on. And the point for value might have passed already, where you said like the tiers are there, and that's just what we see here. Like the Bills are so much better than the Broncos overall, and the Ravens are better than the Steelers. And maybe the Chargers can give one of those teams a run for their money, because I do expect the Chargers to win this weekend, but the Steelers, the Broncos, they're just not going to be making any noise. And it's going to come down to one of those final 3 teams. So it's at a point, like if you jumped in earlier in the season, maybe when the Ravens, fell a few games behind and the Steelers won that hot streak, and you got the Ravens at a better conference price, congrats on that. But I think, honestly, the point for value has passed, and you just have to take it game by game. I think we will not see one of those bottom tier teams win any game. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, take a look at the NFC there, Tom. Not as top heavy as the AFC, much more balanced all the way through, where some upsets could occur. Which, why don't we start talking about the NFC, and starting with that key game last night. The Lions really impressed me with defense. They were outright the better team from start to finish. Great defense. Offense got in when they could. Jahmyr Gibbs was great. They're the number 1 overall seed. But talk to me about the feelings behind the Vikings, who came into that game last night 2.5-point dogs. They win. They're the 1 seed. They get the rest. Now they lose that game. They got to lick their wounds and head out west to a team and play the Rams, who sat their key starters here. What's the vibes around the Vikings that we're looking at right now entering into the playoffs?
They can't be good, especially considering how they lost and how inefficient they were on offense. And, kind of some of those things was like, a lot of people, and maybe it's just my opinion, what I'm reading it, like a lot of people were just like waiting for the other shoe to drop with Sam Darnold. Like, oh, he's been great, but like we know there are times that he can seriously struggle. And we saw that last week, not to mention the fact that he got a little bit banged up. He was limping around. They have to go on the road. Granted, they have that day because they're playing on Monday night, but it doesn't look great for the Vikings. And I'm already in on the Rams at +2.5. I like them for that spot. Home field advantage. They had essentially a bye week with their starters. Listen, the Vikings had a great season, but they missed their time to strike, and it was getting that first round bye. And I think it's all about the Rams this upcoming week.
The Rams on a short Thursday night game on a short week did beat the Vikings at home as a slight underdog as well. That really turned the Rams season around to be where they are, champions of the NFC West. Vecchio, as Donnie alluded to, a little bit more up in the air when you look at the NFC playoff picture. The Lions, the 1 seed, and the favorites to win the conference crown, a short number at this moment. The Eagles have the 2nd best price. Then we go to the 2 teams out of the NFC North. You mentioned the Rams being live for an upset to end out Super Wildcard Weekend. Is there better value to be had in betting the NFC Championship odds?
It's got to be the Rams. Like, that's where the value would lie, because if we're looking at those odds there, if the Rams beat the Vikings, they're out. And if the Eagles take care of business, then we have 2 teams that are ahead of the Rams immediately eliminated, right? Now we're working with the spots like, okay, we have some good line movement. Those 2 teams are gone. So the number will drop on the Rams. So this may be a spot where I don't believe the Rams are the best team. I still think it would come down to the Lions or the Eagles, but just getting in on that line at 13-1 would be the spot that I go. I already took the Rams at +2.5, like I said, and I will be taking them at 13-1 to win the division. That's win the conference, that is. We're past the division at this point.
Should be a great Super Wildcard Weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So if we do look at the Super Bowl odds as a whole, I'm going to ask you this one question. Right now, the favorite, the Detroit Lions at 3-1, Kansas City Chiefs at plus 350, clearly a tier of two. Do you agree that the Lions should be the favorite here to win the Super Bowl?
Probably. I know a lot of people just probably, they don't want to bet on the Chiefs, so maybe there's just more money on the Lions, and that's where the odds may be. I have a future on the Lions to play the Chiefs. It's not about either team beating one another. It's just about that direct matchup. So that's what I'm certainly hoping to see. But if you were to tell me we're going to see the Chiefs versus the Eagles, like obviously I'm not going to be surprised at that point. If we're going to be seeing the Lions versus the Bills, I know that's a matchup a lot of people want to see just because they want to see other franchises win. I'm not going to be surprised, but I think the odds are super spot on this year. It's not like what we've seen in previous years. We've known who the best teams are since the start of the season, and people want to talk about, maybe the Chargers making a run, maybe the Steelers making a run, but it really comes down to like just these 2 or 3 teams from each conference, and that's just, it is what it is this year.
The 1 seeds, as we learned last night on the broadcast, since we have seen 1 seeds be a thing in the National Football League, their ability to play in Super Bowls, the cream does rise to the top throughout an NFL postseason. Vecchio, looking at the opening round of the NFL postseason, Super Wildcard Weekend, 6 matchups, 2 on Saturday, a triple header on Sunday, and a Monday night nightcap in Los Angeles to end it out. You mentioned the Rams plus 2.5, keeping an eye on the total for that Eagles and Packers game midway in the afternoon on Sunday. An early line approach from your NFL postseason handicapping. Where else might you be looking?
That's Bo Nix over 34.5 passing attempts. What we saw from the Broncos yesterday, right? They win 38-0. They're out in front the entire game. Bo Nix leads the team in rushing. They don't have a single running back that can get to 50 yards. And this is what I've been saying for weeks at this point. The Broncos cannot run the ball. They have this 3-headed monster in the backfield, and none of them are good. So when you have a game script where you're up by literally several touchdowns and you can't control the ground game to have a single running back get to 50 yards, and they're going to be 8.5 or 9-point underdogs by the time that game closes, Bo Nix is going to have to throw the ball because they cannot move the ball on the ground. So it is juiced a little bit at minus 130, minus 135, whatever. But that has to be the early spot to take. Under on the Eagles game, because then I'm expecting some weather to impact that. And then I like the Rams at plus 2.5. That's what it comes down to. I also wouldn't hate taking C.J. Stroud over on passing yards or passing attempts. It's probably not going to be efficient by any means, but he'll probably have to get there for the Texans to stay in it.
And the Texans are a field goal underdog at home to start off our first game of our Saturday doubleheader in the opening round. Vecchio, we saw Tom's top props for this Monday outside of the NFL without any actual games on this Monday, whether on the hardwood or on the ice. Where are you looking?
Devils 3-way money line. That means they have to win in regulation, sitting at minus 125. Couple game losing streak for them. They're simply just better than the Seattle Kraken. I expect them to bounce back, come away with the win. Josh Hart over 9.5 rebounds. Karl-Anthony Towns is listed as questionable. He left the most recent game early. And even if we look back at the game log for Josh Hart, he's piling up 12, 13, 16, 14 rebounds in some of these games, even when Karl-Anthony Towns is playing. Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't need to be out there tonight against the Magic when the Knicks are heavy favorites. So just let Josh Hart do his thing. Rest Karl-Anthony Towns.
9-game NBA slate tonight. The Knicks a 12-point home favorite against Orlando inside Madison Square Garden. TV Tom Vecchio, we appreciate you as always. CFP early line next.